welcome to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain.
But first, our post-show opinion. An uplifting treat for the family this winter.
The perfect panto for some festive fun.
Okay, Richard, here we are in the car, ready to record our first podcast in the car.
I know, how exciting is
How
this?
weird is this?
Weird. In Northampton Services, the place we have decided to record.
So we've been to see Sleeping Beauty at, what theatre was that?
It was at the Broadway Theatre in Catford.
Catford. Quite an unusual theatre. I'm
Yes.
getting there. Before we even got to the auditorium, it felt like it was in a church/cinema/theatre.
Yeah, it's quite a multi-purpose
It was
building,
mixed.
but I think
Yeah.
the town hall was part of it as well, so it was very unique in the design, because it's quite a circular building and the theatre was actually quite rectangular.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult
it-
to work out where everything was.
It looked like a bit of a bunker situation,
Yeah.
with Art Deco thrown in, and the light fittings in the doors were beautiful and all the little details. It was
Yeah.
just, fantastic. So very amazed by that.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then the show we went to see was a pantomime, and well, obviously it was. Sleeping
Oh, no, it
Beauty.
wasn't.
Oh, yes, it was. And would you like to describe what we saw from the beginning of the set?
When we walked into the auditorium, we were presented with a very typical Panto-esque screen, drape, whatever you want to call it, tabs of basically Sleeping Beauty with a lot of
The title
glitter and
Yeah.
very, very simple but to the point, almost like the look of a storybook front cover, really, for Sleeping Beauty. That's the easiest way to describe it. There's quite a lot of purple around and quite a lot of very bright colours. And then everything was covered in glitter, really. It was like a Blue Peter project where you got the glue stick out and covered everything in glitter. So, which is nothing wrong with that when we're talking Christmas panto. No.
No, because they've got to be uplifting for the winter period,
Yeah.
and it's got to be shiny.
And you've
everything
got to
like
have a
that.
bit of glitter.
Yes. There's a joke in that, but I won't say it. We won't go there.
No.
So this production, I felt, stuck to the origins of the storyline. It didn't go off on different tangents like a lot of other pantomimes we've seen. It followed the plot along quite well,
Yeah.
actually. And this was written and directed by Susie McKenna.
Yep.
And I felt that this was really well written. The jokes were just, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
All the way through. And what I really liked about the writing of this, which also assisted with the performance, which we'll talk about in a bit, was that each character fulfilled their character plot and the point of them being there. Even though this is just a pantomime and it's not really in depth or anything, I mean, it's not Chekhov, obviously. But I mean, like, in terms of the character's storyline, she wrote enough so that each actor playing those characters got something to do.
Yeah, and they had a fully rounded role by the end of it as well.
Yeah, because we've seen some pantomimes where they're just there for the sake of it.
Yeah, and you think,
Like,
where's the rest of their storyline?
Yeah, in Dick Whittington, there was a rat or a cat that just didn't really go anywhere or do anything extra.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very much forgotten, whereas the core principal actors had a lot to do, and kept the energy high and kept the plot moving, and it was really entertaining to see.
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
Well, I echo that, and I do think that it had all the elements of a classic panto writing, but familiar but comfortable in a good way, as in, I also felt like there was that many jokes written in it. The easiest way to describe it was like almost a machine gun of jokes. When one finished, there was another one, there was another one, there was another one. A bit like the way the songs were intertwined. It was full of content, and to keep an audience fixed or entertained, you've got to keep throwing things in with the panto. You can't have a slow build you've just got to keep going. And
I particularly love the intro to that, where they did Hamilton in pantomime form.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great introduction to it, because it set the scene really as to what was to be expected. What else would you say about the writing that stuck out? Because I know you said this was very typical pantomime.
Yeah, it was typical panto in structure. From your first half is your setup. The storyline is very similar to how a Sleeping Beauty should go.
Oh, it featured a glow-in-the-dark scene as well, which
you
a
had
lot of
the
pantomimes
UV
do.
scene in the second half. You also had the
Sing-along.
comedy sing-along bits, and also the he's behind you moments, which you've got to have the classic elements of a panto for it to be a panto. But I did like the way that they twisted the writing a little bit in the second half, where they played a bit with the script and the storyline of Sleeping Beauty, but they still finished it off, well.
Yeah, because throughout all the pantomimes, they have touched upon the essence of, should Prince Charming kiss like Sleeping Beauty or Snow White or whoever it is, like,
without consent, or
and so that rears its ugly head. However, this version did it with the dame, the nanny, kissing her to wake her up, which was still, they got around it with it being the loving person in her life doing it, so which is still believable. But I can see how this version emboldened Sleeping Beauty herself to be more of like a fighter and not like some damsel in distress.
Yeah, exactly.
They played with the gender really well and emphasised strong women.
Deal here. They did, but I also think they still kept a storyline for the prince. We've seen a version of Snow White where, because of that moment, the prince was basically null and void for the whole production. It didn't even matter. Whereas this was written in a good way, where the prince had his own storyline, and it was great to have that, because you felt like you said, with all the principal cast having their own storylines.
Yeah.
He had his own storyline.
Yeah, he wasn't just sidelined or forgotten completely.
No, exactly.
In fact, he got captured himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Which led to a very amusing scene with him having to dance whilst being chained up.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, that was entertaining by itself. I felt some of the jokes were very, they were hilarious. They were good.
Yeah.
There were, I don't know if you'll agree with me here, but I felt a few of the jokes were a bit too politically driven one way, when there's a lot of other jokes that could have been made about the current government right now, because it felt like some of them just went over the heads or just was too far forgotten. Like there was a joke about Jacob Rees-Mogg, which really,
I think to add to that, I think when you write a production, you have a rehearsal schedule that goes quite a distance, and you almost have to rewrite it to be current at the point it goes out.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to rely on the script, and some jokes need to insert name here or insert name here or insert place name here, and sometimes if you don't edit it to what's happening in the political world or the world or the news, then sometimes you can get those moments, like you say, where people just don't laugh because it's like the joke doesn't land.
Well, those jokes would have been great a couple of years ago.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at.
It's like, joke of Starmer and Rachel Reeves, and they've done an awful lot just lately to warrant being taken the mick out of. So there's a couple of jokes there that could have been.
Yeah, even if it's a combination, balanced political, both sides.
Because there was a great joke about the BBC.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't expecting that.
No.
And that was very on point.
Yeah, definitely.
I felt that this was well directed. I felt the fight scenes in particular was enough to convey a struggle.
Yeah.
Without it being too slapdash and stupid, but also without it being too complex for the kids watching as well.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that, not just that from...
Oh, you were you?
Yeah, from a directing perspective, you are directing to children all the way up to grandparents. So you have to do a lot of physical things or have a simpler storyline in the background so the kids can follow it and they can do all the booing and the hissing and the shouting at the cast because they are following the story.
Yes.
And right up to granddads and grandmas that are following it as well and laughing at underneath the innuendo jokes and things like that. So you've got to hit all audiences, and to direct that you have to add a certain level of physicality to the production so that you over exaggerate certain things, you overact certain moments that you wouldn't normally do in real theatre.
Pantomime is a style of acting in itself, to be honest.
It's like the woe is me, your hand would go on your forehead rather than showing it on your face, or everything's very grand or very pronounced, and you've got to do more of that in a panto you've got to make sure the cast do that, and the direction matters. You've got to understand that is important as well.
We just circle back to the whole pantomime situation. There was a couple of things that I was going to bring up. We didn't get much of a, oh no it isn't, oh yes it is.
No,
and we never had much of a it's behind you moment. There was a bit with the spider element, but it never went to the case where a lot of pantomimes do of looking and it not being there, and then looking again and it not being there.
But also, there wasn't many moments that were improv for that. You know what I mean? In the sense of, there's certain times when the cast try and make the rest of the people on stage laugh, or the dancers laugh, or we've got to stand here and do something, and the dame would try and make the cast laugh, and then they'd start, they'd mess things up, or use the audience in that. They did a bit of it, but...
Yeah, there was audience participation there.
But they were just...
with the compare.
Yeah, they just could have done with maybe a little bit more of fuel in the fire, maybe.
Yeah, because the Dame Nanny Nora character, when she discovered the spiders, there was like a null reaction.
Yeah.
And even when Ben Fox as King Eric the Undecided, when he was reacting to it, there was a moment where he said, "Oh no, there isn't a spider," but we could clearly see he saw the spider there, which...
And I think as part of that it didn't help that the spiders themselves didn't drop down behind them. Mm-hmm. They were on their heads.
Yeah.
So you almost set yourself up to not be able to use that as a joke or as part of that gag, because you're not in the placement where they should be, almost. Or I was expecting a bigger spider to run on as a person dressed in a costume to be a spider, but to be behind them. So then you could have egged is behind you bit, but they didn't have that.
And I think this is probably where, which links into what you were saying about having that audience participation. I mean, it links back to what you were saying about having the cast like fluff up or pick on each other or make notice of the fact that they've seen something that happened. They could have done that.
Yeah, rather than just get through the script. Because I think sometimes it's almost like you have to know the script upside down, backwards and forwards to go off script. And sometimes I feel like that Panto is the only time the rules are thrown out the window a little bit, because you should be able to stop and start a production like Panto, because you get the freedom to do it, you know.
Well, you're allowed to break the fourth wall, so you can do what you want, really. So overall, you'd say that it was a really good directing.
Yeah.
Script-wise, it's a really good production.
Yeah.
It just needed a little bit more leeway.
I've seen a lot worse for a lot more money.
Really?
You know, as in Pantos that I feel like you're paying a lot of money to see, and I don't think half the work's been gone into the script writing or the actual production itself sometimes, you know.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like it's nice to see something that you can tell has been written for itself, rather than a script that basically travels around the country and gets reused and rehashed.
Yes.
Which I feel like there's a lot of Panto out there that is mainstream, and that's all it does. They just rewrite little parts of a script, but it's the same story.
There was a little bit in, I think it was in the end of the first act, where, was it in the second act, when it's Talia the Beautiful's 18th birthday. There was a slight awkward moment.
It's in the first half.
In the first half, then, yes. There was two bits. She came out, and it was as if they were waiting for all the audience members to say happy birthday, and each of the cast members said happy birthday. That moment there was a bit awkward and a bit of a lull.
Yes.
It felt like
there was some waiting.
When she comes out, everybody say happy birthday.
Yeah, it's a surprise. We're all going to hide. We're all going to, even if they didn't just imitated hiding behind the hands, or
I think that could have done. There could have been like audience participation there. Shall we move on to the acting and the props and the costumes?
Yep. Let's do this.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama.
I thought this was an incredible cast.
Yeah.
You could tell that each of them really enjoyed performing, not just their character, but with each other on that stage.
Yeah, you could tell they gelled together, even down to the little children supporting cast that were part of the dance team, the little dance team and stuff. Yeah. They all just got on. You could tell. You know, you could tell that they all enjoyed. You could tell that they were supporting each other and making sure everybody got on stage and did their bit. You could tell that everybody was helping everybody. There was no upstaging each other. I didn't feel like that, you know.
Were the children in the show part of the community theatre?
Well, they were part of the Montage Theatre Arts, as in it's based in Lewisham. So they have all come from the local area. So yeah, community, but through a theatre company that does predominantly classes for young people. So
it was a good opportunity for them to get on.
So yeah, it's a great springboard, and actually, I suppose this is probably a good time to talk about just a few references of people that have performed in Catford, which we didn't actually realise until we got into the theatre, of how many actors and performers have been through that door into that theatre across its time. Most of the greats you can name have performed on that stage. So what a great springboard for young people and for young actors as well that are treading the boards and want to be seen, really.
If I'm being honest, I would say there was, whilst they were all great performers, there were some standout performances from the characters.
There really
I think this
was.
was down to the individuals. I thought Lisa Davina Phillip as Carabossi.
Amazing.
Yes. She was just stunning. Her vocal ability as well was just amazing, but I loved how she sort of brought it down. She changed her character.
Yeah.
From not just being wicked, but being sort of like down to earth.
Yeah, and I liked how she leaned into what was very obvious her Jamaican roots.
Yes.
And leaned into her accent and made it funny. And her comic timing was brilliant, as well as being a great vocalist. She was just funny.
And can I just say, I won't spoil it here, but there's a part that always made me laugh. It's a telescope scene. I won't say any more.
Yeah, they don't need to say anymore, but yeah, it was brilliant.
But that's hilarious. I love that.
Yeah, so simple, but it's also something that, done by Carabos, worked really well, and it was timed perfection. It was brilliant.
That was sheer brilliance of whoever thought of that.
Yeah, definitely.
The other standout for me as well was Justin Brett as Dame Nanny Nora.
Yeah.
She was great at moving the story along as a dame.
Yeah. And she captured the audience. It was bang. I mean, I'm on stage.
The audience, you went into the audience.
Yeah,
to capture them and spray them.
Yeah, but I think we were sort of middle towards the back of the theatre, and even we felt like she was grabbing everybody and bringing them on stage and having a laugh with them. It was,
and her jokes were just sublime, so fastly delivered. She was so witty and sharp and on point.
But also picked a few up on the two people she pulled out of the audience. She came out with some jokes later down the line that actually were direct references to what the people were wearing, or and it was held back, but it was funny at the point when she brought it in. For me, another standout is Natasha Lewis.
I was just about to say that. Yes, and we heard of her from St Joseph's Theatre when we did Brief Encounter, and she was brilliant. And the moment we saw the credits and saw that she was in it, and that's where we know her from, we thought, she's the one that played the trombone. And lo and behold, in the second act,
she gets to play the trombone.
She gets the trombone out again, and she was great in this as well as Brief Encounter as well.
Yeah, really good.
It's always a joy to see actors you remember from previous ones that you've seen as well.
Yeah, and similar to the Dame, she was a really good hook throughout this production as a returning character all the way through. Yes. I thought that worked really well. Another shout out while we're talking about brass is brass instruments was King Eric playing his own fanfare. Because for me that was hilarious. So King Eric kept coming out, as in Ben Fox, playing his own trumpet to enter the stage, and that it was nice to see their own little talents used on show all the way through this in a way.
But to be, even though we've highlighted quite a few of the funny ones that tickled us, shall we say, all the cast was brilliant.
Yeah, they were.
Even the smaller roles were just on point. They were, they made us smile and laugh and got on board with their characters and their portrayal of those as well.
And I think also to mention as well, there was a lot of work with some of the songs where certain cast members provided backing vocals for the main characters when they were singing. Yeah. So you'd got a bit more depth to the songs rather than them just be individual vocalists. It was they'd done a lot of work on the actual combination of the voices,
and everything. It was amazing. And can I just point out Prince Gabriel, who is Jerome Stokes? His dancing.
Well,
and his comedy.
You were mesmerised
as well. I was. I mean, he's got the moves. I'm sorry, but he's got the moves. No, that was brilliant. And Rashani Abbey, she was just wonderful, wasn't she?
Yes.
Talia the Beautiful. She was very strong, and you could see why Susie wrote it to be like a strong woman.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
She played Talia really well. Really strong. Very. I thought she was going to come out with the Xena war cry, and proper go for it there. yeah, she was really
but
really strong in the performance
and
all the way through, and it carried it.
And I don't even though they did that, I don't feel like they upstaged each other, and that was quite good to see, really, because they were very controlled, all the cast, in how they performed with each other, and that was nice to see.
And from the get-go, with the Power of Three song, each time they came out,
yes,
they just grabbed the audience. They just took everyone on this journey. You know, it's they all had stage presence.
They did.
Each member of them.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about the costumes? Because I got a little bugbear here.
Yeah, go for it.
Whilst I thought they all had their individual looks, they all had black boots. Well, the majority of them had black boots. And I felt like what let them down here was the fact that this is a pantomime and they needed some glitz and glam within the costume.
Yeah, and I felt like saying, don't forget the footwear, because we can see your feet.
Yes.
And
like the fairies, they could have all had different coloured
dot
ballet
markings.
shoes, or they could have just been like glittered up, or sequined up, or jeweled up,
or even different dance shoe heels with different colours that match what they were wearing. I feel like they were just almost an afterthought, and I think you described
it was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it felt like it was like stuff they just found around to chuck on, rather than actually something that felt showy.
Yeah.
Because they got costume, so if you got costume, the feet are part of it, you know.
So the dame had all these different costumes she came out with, but she always had the same sort of like flat footwear.
Yeah.
And it just felt a bit lackluster there.
Yeah.
And I felt like the dame's costume, whilst it did change, it could have been a little bit more, a little bit extravagant, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But then again, it all depends on the budget, I suppose.
Of course it does.
However, for them all to have sort of like black shoes on, black boots.
Yeah.
It just needed elevating a bit, because you see the costumes from the head down, and then it's like the shoes or the boots are the forgotten things. So they just need rhinestone just to cover up all the black, so they're all different and they're all separate. Really.
And I did also think that Talia's first outfit was a little bit too mainstream than looking Panto. It was like just a burgundy sort of.
Well, actually, just come out of Primark.
Yeah, a little bit, but it was just like a burgundy sort of cut off to the diagonal dress, but with a belt. But it could have been edged with something, or it could have it was just missing. It was lacking the Panto sparkle that everything else had. And also, we could have done with, for the birthday party, could have just done with a different dress than the one she wore, because she wore that in the final, the wedding scene. And the wedding scene should be completely separate to the birthday in a way, because they're not the same scene. Whereas the wedding scene was basically the same dress she wore in the birthday with a corset.
Yeah.
Which can look okay, but it just looked too close. It was two white dresses, whereas if she'd have wore something that was in the realm of still quite big and brash for the birthday, but it was a different colour, it would have been better.
Yeah.
Because the wedding scene should always be the white, all white look, and that it just had a bit of a contrast. You've just put a corset on that. It doesn't elevate it, and
I think that's what we mean here with the elevation of the costume.
Yeah, exactly.
The dames could have done with being bigger. Like I've seen, when you see dames with like teapots and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't feel like this dame had that outrageous thing. But again, I suppose it's down to the budget. It's the shoes I'm more bothered about.
Yeah.
Although one of them, I think it was Georgia May Price as Shimmer Pop. I think she had the ballet shoes. I think her outfit matched. I think, I could be wrong. That could have been Rose Lynn, possibly. I don't know, but one of the costumes that did baffle me was Denzel the Dragon's.
Yes.
He was dressed like Michael Jackson in that red sort of like suit. But it could have had like a dragon head at the top.
Yeah.
And had the whole like spikes at the bottom, and then maybe a huge long tail that could whip around at the back.
I think that's what we're saying about enhancing. They just weren't exaggerated enough for you to instantly know that's a dragon. That's a this, that's that. Because
because we had the rats as well, didn't we?
They weren't rats. They were. I think they were wolves.
Were they what, rats?
Well, they were actually like wolves. I think.
Wolves?
Yeah, because
Or foxes or what?
it's wolves, dogs, foxes, but it was very nondescript because the ears weren't big enough, and
The ears were small, but the tails were huge.
Yeah, I just think it didn't instant. It wasn't like cats where they're cats because of the markings. It wasn't like
Rats with the distinct tail.
Yeah, and the I think it just needed that. I mean, the thing is, I think for me, you look at Caraboose and you know that is a strong look, whereas
she's like fresh out of Ursula.
And I felt like the others, there was just some elements of polish needed for certain other characters, really. Less.
Even the prince didn't have like huge gum boots, like brown gum boots, or something that looked like princified. I'm sure he was still.
He's got trainers, I think.
Trainers, or but again, it's that elevation.
It was
trainers, yeah. But they all had lovely costumes.
Yeah.
From the knees up, from the ankles up, I'd say. It was the shoes. This is Bootgate. This is. I'm just trying to try.
I know.
I think even like the dragon had trainers on, which looked like my gym trainers. But I think the footwear could have been elevated a little bit more. I'd say.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the props?
Yeah. Props were very sparse. There wasn't many, but the props that they had were good.
Swords and sticks.
Yeah, and the baby, the baby and the chaise longue and the
crib.
Yeah, and the crib and the chair and so all those things worked well, I thought.
On the whole set piece with all them, it worked fine for a pantomime.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
There was no real sort of missteps in that way.
And all quite, I don't say glamorous, but it was very noticeable and shiny and happy and joyful and
yeah. I think as well it was like the oh god, what's it called?
A handbag.
No.
2 chocolates and a gentleman's relish.
No.
The spinning wheel.
That's it. The spinning wheel and things like that. Everything that was needed was on stage when it needed to be, as in all the key elements.
Yes.
So you knew you were in Sleeping Beauty, basically. The same as the set pieces, really. The way they'd set things out, and
Incidentally, they didn't really play much with height. Everything was one level.
Yeah, it was.
There was no like bridges up.
There was no steps,
kind of,
no stairs,
or anything like that.
It was all very flat stage.
Oh, there's one thing we've completely missed.
What?
The thing they had to fight. The prince had to fight that great monster thing.
Oh, the like almost gnome, warlock, whatever it was, big. Yeah.
Hunchback of Shrek.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
The BFG.
Well, that was after the. Oh, actually, I want to say something else about props.
Oh, do you?
The UV scene.
Oh, yeah.
Was probably better than some of I've seen in the past, where normally you see a lot of cardboard objects that are UV that are moved around and sort of floating in the sky, as it were. But it was nice to see actual UV 3D puppets almost that were on stage with the thorns and the tangled web of things. It had more depth than a normal UV scene, because a lot of them just end up being quite flat, really.
Agreed. What do you want to carry on about the BFG?
Yeah, the BFG warlock thing, I think that worked really well. I feel that it added something that was unexpected for the kids, and it was on long enough not to scare them. The only thing you and me both thought, the only thing I'd say with that is it was just right at the last moment where
it
dwindled away because they put it to sleep, but it almost just stopped on stage rather than collapsing or falling. It just and it just
saw it collapse or go to sleep,
or on its way to collapsing.
It needed like another bigger fight scene.
Yes.
It needed something to go on for a few more minutes.
If you go to all the effort of bringing something like that out, you should make more of it.
Yeah. Other than that, it was a beautifully constructed monster.
Yeah, it was.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the Tech Is This?
Now, moving on to the technical things, Richard. Would you like to give a rundown of what technical things you noticed?
Well, there's a couple of flashes and bangs that worked really well, and they were timed well in the production as well. They went off when they should have done.
Yes, there was no technical hitches.
No.
And incidentally, the microphones were
worked.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it was actually nice to
hear them.
Yeah, hear them well and hear everybody, but also know that the tech must have understood vocals and use of vocals. But with that, there was also good effects used. So smoke was used in the right places,
Yeah.
and the lighting was used in the right places. There was no real anything that went off wrong that I could see. It was very bright and very colourful. And the only one thing I did notice is one set of the LEDs that was lighting up the proscenium arch had fell over, and they didn't rectify it in the interval, even though it had already fell over in the interval. And it just had a little bit of. You've got one side of the proscenium arch that was lit in a colour and changed different colours, and the other one was just pointing out into the audience. So it was a little bit. I wouldn't say it was distracting to the majority of people, but to me, I just noticed those little things when you need a bit of balance for the proscenium arch changing colour, and it was pointing the wrong way.
If we could see it and we were sat behind the tech desk,
I'd have had a word.
Surely the tech people could have seen that.
Exactly.
Unless they were just meant to be, because I can't remember them.
They didn't move from what I saw.
No.
And now it's time for
Rewind Rewatch.
Right, rewind rewatch, Richard. I don't know about you, but for me, anything with that telescope and the dancing, when the Prince Gabriel is dancing.
Oh, you're loving that dancing.
It might not just be the dancing. I think it might just be the actor.
Yeah, it could be. I think you've got a soft spot. I think for me it was the Dame bits. This time the Dame really did hit it right. So and also Caraboos's vocal talents. Quite happily watch that again.
Yes, that's all the way through. To sum up then, please, Richard.
For me, it's a great little panto, and I don't use little in the smallest word. It's a great show, and if you like a bit of panto and you need something to have a bit of fun in on a lovely Christmas night, it's definitely something that needs to be watched, and I'd urge anybody to see it.
Yeah, for me, this was a thoroughly enjoyable pantomime. It's definitely one I could watch again. It was so much fun, and we went to see it on the matinee, so I can only imagine just how crowded and how fun it would be on the evening performances. And to see everybody like in the interval and come out and just be so happy and just joyful at this pantomime, and it really did work a treat. So yeah, I think this was a really, really good pantomime.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Scores then, please, Richard, for Sleeping Beauty. On a scale of 1 to 10, Richard, what's it going to be?
Well, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because it was thoroughly enjoyable.
I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Well, look at you.
I know. Yeah. Even though the boot gate.
Yeah. You've said your piece. We've said a piece.
Yeah. 8.5.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
Sound effects then, please, Richard.
Look, it's got to be a standing ovation. They deserve it.
And it's a standing ovation from me as well.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Sleeping Beauty. We hope you find it insightful, but if not, entertaining. Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts and opinions on many theatrical delights in future episodes.
If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of
Upstage Downstage.